Headed to SoFi Stadium? Skip the traffic and ride the Culver City Bus Line 99, the SoFi Express, your direct $2 base fare round-trip ride from the Culver City Transit Center at Westfield, Culver City. Buses run on weekend game days every 20 minutes starting 3 hours before kickoff, with return service beginning at the start of the third quarter. And guess what else? We're hiring. Join our team and help keep the community moving. Visit culvercitybus.com or call 310-253-6500 for info on your next ride to the game or maybe your next job.
Good afternoon. Getting right down to business here. We're doing it live and doing more at 4 weekday afternoons, right after Guy Benson and just before the 790 KBC News Blitz with Randy Wang at 5. It's Mottek On Money, live on the air and 790 KBC, streaming live online worldwide, kbc.com. And the on-demand Mottek On Money podcast, kbc.com, Apple, iTunes, YouTube, and all your favorite podcast platforms. Positive start to the new week on Wall Street with the S&P 500. Blowing past 6,600 once again and rising above 6,600 for the first time. The tech-heavy NASDAQ notching its sixth consecutive record high close. The Dow also higher, just below its all-time high. The Dow 49 points. The S&P 500 of 31. The NASDAQ popped 208 points. Another big week here as we await the Fed's decision on interest rates and a statement on the economy and a full-blown news conference from Fed Chairman Jerome Powell. That'll be happening on Wednesday. Stocks kissing record highs today as U.S.-China trade talks unfolded in Spain. The major averages all ticking higher to kick off the new week, coming off a strong week in which the NASDAQ and the S&P 500 saw their best weekly showing since early August, and the Dow snapped a 2-week losing streak this past week. Investors now looking ahead to the big policy-setting meeting with the Federal Reserve, set to start that meeting tomorrow, wrapping up on Wednesday. Looks like traders now pricing in a 96% chance of a quarter-point reduction in the short-term benchmark Fed funds rate and 4% odds of a jumbo rate cut to the tune of maybe 0.5%. That's the latest reading on the betting markets, as easing could provide another tailwind for stocks, especially AI enthusiasm. We did see NVIDIA pretty much unchanged today at $177 and change. Among the winners, Tesla, up more than $14 today at $410 and change. At Oracle, headed up by Larry Ellison, who briefly topped Elon Musk as the world's wealthiest person last week when Oracle stock saw that big jump. Oracle today having another good day, up $10, just about to $302 and change. U.S. and Chinese authorities meeting for another round of high-stakes trade talks today. Treasury Secretary Bessent says the U.S. and China have agreed on a framework now for a TikTok deal ahead of a U.S. ban set to go into effect later this week on September 17th. Shares of Oracle, the software giant that is reportedly a contender to buy TikTok, moved higher. NVIDIA moving slightly lower, appearing to shake off news that a preliminary investigation in China found the AI chip maker had violated China's antitrust laws. We'll be talking more about that coming up here. We see a Bitcoin, by the way, back above 115,000. Some of the others have been getting a pop lately, including Doge, which is suddenly back to 27 cents, and Solana is up around 234. Ethereum is above 4,500. Merger and acquisition activity is picking up. Johannes Masserer, Executive Director of the Association for Corporate Growth LA Chapter, ACGLA, starting its big annual M&A conference this week in Beverly Hills with the biggest names in investment banking, law firms, and others focused on M&A activity. Johannes will be joining me live later this hour to kick off that important conference. Crime, of course, always in focus as relates to business, and LA crime stats are coming under scrutiny these days. Security at events, too, following the assassination of Charlie Kirk last week. The Honorable Dennis ZINE, former LA City Council member and former LAPD sergeant, will be joining me live here later this hour. But first, on your money, the markets, the economy, and the whole works. Joining us live now, top-ranked money manager Ken Winans, President and Chief Investment Officer at Winans Investments at winansinvestments.com. Ken Winans, also a market historian, author of numerous books, including Investment Atlas 3. That's his latest. Also Forbes magazine contributor, so be sure to check out his latest article. Ken Winans also has his crypto credentials. And he's also a wine aficionado, too. We'll be talking more about that because, most importantly, he's host of Winning with Winans, heard every Monday evening at 6 p.m. on your favorite station right here, 790 KBC. Ken, thank you very much for taking the call here this afternoon.
My pleasure, Frank, and I apologize for the noise in the background. I am actually in Washington, D.C. this week. The Las Vegas Chamber of Congress brings a large business contingent back here annually to have a talk with our elected officials about things that are all about business. And it's been interesting. Everything, it's fun to hear firsthand when you're here what's going on. And by the way, if anybody's curious, yes, there are National Guard troops on the street. I've seen it, and the city is very safe and very clean right now. So I can tell you firsthand it has an effect compared to what I saw last year. But let me tell you, the thing you keep hearing about a lot are the tariffs. And you're getting very different views depending on who you talk to about the impact it's having on bottom line business. Let me throw this out there. And it's something I hadn't really thought about, but I think it's something we all have to deal with wherever you are in the country. There are companies out there taking advantage of tariffs, blaming tariffs, and they're raising their prices on end products. I'm hearing a lot of complaints about that here. And I would just say that, things like that, shenanigans like that, bring government regulation to the table. We don't want that. So anybody listening to the show who's thinking about that, I wouldn't go there. But, Frank, the other thing you talked about were certainly interest rates. There's a lot of talk here. Absolutely nobody thinks the Fed's going to stay pat. In fact, I'll go as far as to say if the Fed does, in fact, stay, even with change in language, and doesn't lower rates, the market will probably not take the news well. But it's very, very loud and clear to everybody I've talked to here that they generally feel rates are way too high and they need to come down. So, I'm seeing it and hearing it firsthand from some very important business leaders.
Interesting that the NASDAQ is at a record high and has seen this nearly week-long streak here of record-shattering performance, up another 208 points today at 22,349. Historically, tech stocks, and you can tell us more about this, have always been interest rate sensitive. Does this thing have more to go on the upside here with these tech names continuing to rally?
You know what, Frank? I want everybody to think about this because, we might poo-poo seasonality. There's some people out there that say this nonsense. To have a strong September like we are having, I can tell you, I've gone back and looked at it, going back to the 1970s. It is very, very hard to find a strong September and a lousy fall. I'm not saying that you bet the farm, but I will tell you, as far as what I'm doing right now, I am 100% fully invested. I've actually gone on margin in my trading accounts. So I'm very much convinced that we're going to have a very strong fall going right through the holiday season. I would bring up one other quick thing as kind of a very good telltale sign. Retailers. The fact that you have the retailers, again, you have to think about every retailer is a little different, and I understand that. But generally speaking, the retail sector overall has had a pretty good run, even in spite of all this tariff talk. And I dare say I think the holiday season might actually be a pretty good season. People are going to feel inclined to want to go out and spend money. So, I think that people who have been sitting with a lot of cash in their money market accounts, they better get prepared that those money market rates are going to come down very fast. And the money you're making now, you are not going to be making in 30 days.
On the Live with top-ranked money manager Ken Winans, a front-page article in the Wall Street Journal today, right along with what you've been saying. Your markets stay hot, defying economic narrative. The coolest trade on Wall Street is known as Run It Hot, as the Journal notes. While slowing job growth and tariff-related costs remain primary concerns, the core of the trade lies between betting on an economic resurgence, not a recession. And that seems to be the mood here at the moment.
Well, I'll even put it this way, too, Frank. We haven't talked about it in quite a while. It depends on who you listen to, and unfortunately, it's taken on, even within the financial news, a political narrative. I saw one absolutely idiotic article saying that the dollar is at the lowest point it's been in 30 years. That is absolute, utter nonsense. The dollar index, which is what I track and what we have futures contracts trade off of, right now, year to date, is down maybe, I think, about 8%, but it's well within the bounds of where it has been throughout this entire, really since 2000, and way, way above where it was in 2008. So the dollar is actually stable. If you have that stability, you bring money back to the United States, which is what the Trump administration wants to have happen. So you could have an influx of foreign money coming in to buy U.S. stocks and U.S. bonds. Let me talk about that very quickly. Bonds. I know for a fact, because we trade a lot of corporate bonds and preferred stocks, the yield you're seeing today, you're not going to see these yields in basically, I would say, even 2 weeks. Bond prices are going to take off. I dare say that corporate bond prices could be one of the better performers throughout this fall because a lot of people have stayed away from bonds, yet they need income investments. So, again, I find very little out there that gives me a moment of concern. Let me jump real quick to commodities. Gold and silver, those trends are your friends. They are continuing to be very strong. I've had a lot of people at this conference. They know I'm a commodity trader. And when I look at the internal buy and sell indicators that I watch very closely, metals are still very, very strong. There's still certainly a big, powerful move in platinum as well. I'm just saying that, the things that have really the leadership has been defined. The Trump stocks are making their way to the top of the heap, and they're going to continue to do it for the rest of the year.
On the air live with top-ranked money manager Ken Winans. Gold hitting a record high today, as a matter of fact, right now hovering above 3,700 at 3,716 and change. We see silver above $43 an ounce, the highest it's been in more than a decade. In platinum right now, I'm looking at it here at $1,416.90. And switching now to so-called digital gold, Bitcoin back above 115,000, and some of these others have been popping lately. Ethereum is back above 4,500. Solana has made a move on the upside in the last month or so at 234, and even Doge, which we keep an eye on, is at 27 cents. What about the cryptos here?
I've been saying it for a while. I think that because I put crypto in with commodities. To me, it's like whether I'm looking at cattle, I'm looking at crypto, I'm looking at corn, whatever, anything but the sea, so to speak. You have to buy the dips. The trends are there. The fact that it was interesting because Bitcoin was looking very toppy for a while, but people are buying the dips, Frank. They continue to come in. I think a lot of it's because there's so many new products out there that have basically crypto in them, and there's a lot of managers now, and wealth managers especially, who have decided to add this to their portfolios. So the demand is there. Ethereum is a little bit different animal. I've traded a lot of things in my life. Ethereum is one of the wackier patterns I've ever looked at, and the extremes with it, but very clearly same thing. The people are stepping in and buying it. Solana's the new kid in the block. A lot of people are using it for the diversification play. But a lot of talk in Washington is all about what's going to happen with the stable coin and regulation, and what are they going to jump into. What's a little weird is that almost all the stable coins are going into precious metals, which is kind of odd if you think about it, because people in the precious metals have already bought the ETFs. They don't need to buy the crypto. So they're going to have to start thinking about some other things. But, Frank, I will also just, on a furnishing note, I know this is a sombering note for an awful lot of people, but the simple fact is cattle is another big commodity besides gold, silver, and platinum. Cattle prices continue to go higher. I think that we're going to be looking at steak being very expensive for the rest of the year. And a lot of it is just simply that we've let the third thin way too much, especially in California, where they have very, very tight regulation because of methane requirements on cattle. Things like that cause these issues to happen. But again, I just think that, this is not a time to be sitting in cash. I know the markets seem overpriced. I've looked at a lot of tops in my career. And I'm not saying that this is a young bull market. It is not. But I can certainly say that rarely do you have tops form in the fall. And so people should just not be discouraged to step in and buy some of those stocks that you've been watching for a while.
On your live with top-ranked money manager Ken Winans. I'm sure we'll have a chance to explore all these subjects more this evening at 6 o'clock on Winning with Winans. But certainly, what are your thoughts on these companies that are creating these crypto treasuries and some of the newcomers here that have seen big pops with their IPOs, and including the one with exposure to Ethereum, BitMine, and then we see Orbs, Aitco, and Circle, and so forth. You took the words right out of my mouth. What are your thoughts on those here now?
There's another example where some people, it depends how you want to look at the data. The people who are bearish on the market are saying, look at these IPOs. They're putting junk out. They're looking terrible. This is exactly what happened in 2000. Well, I was around in 2000, as you were too, Frank. And I said, you and I both know there was some real junk being floated in the public markets back then. I distinctly remember one company was running Super Bowl ads, and it was out of business 6 months later. These companies are, in fact, real. Now, I'm not saying they're making money yet, but they're in an area of the market that continues to draw in new capital. That's always a thing. Now, I typically don't buy IPOs because they can be very, very hard to get the shares unless you buy all of them. But this area by itself is going to have its ebbs and flows, and there will be companies that don't make it. But all in all, I think the players you just mentioned are going to be here to stay. The one thing that people keep talking about, and not to get too geeky here, but about Tether, that you keep hearing from anybody who's in my line of work, look, Tether is the main player in stablecoin, but we don't trust the accounting. I heard one guy say it reminds me of Enron. You just can't trust the accounting. So we're going to have to work through some of these issues within the crypto world. But again, for those of us who do study and watch it very closely, I would just say certainly something you want to watch. I would just simply say this. The fact that you have iShares and, you have a lot of these mainstay companies that put out investment products that have added Bitcoin and Ethereum to their portfolios, I think for a lot of people, you should consider it as you're looking at your portfolios because it is clearly going to be an area of the future and an area to make money.
And last but not least, it's been a while since we chatted behind live microphones, and since then there was a new man at the top of the wealthiest list recently, and that was Larry Ellison on that big jump in Oracle stock last week, briefly taking the number one spot from Elon Musk, who's now regained that crown. But Oracle stock getting a pop again today, up nearly $10 at 302 and change. It's been as high as 345 in that pop last week. What about Oracle here and talk that it might end up with TikTok?
Well, what is really funny about Oracle, I mean, Larry Ellison was the richest man on the list or darn near the top for many, many decades. And then Oracle obviously had to go through a reformulation of their business plan, which they have. And now they're once again firing on all cylinders. I caution people about the need to always buy new stocks. Don't turn your back on the old guard because the old guard have either they can buy the growth or they have the R&D capabilities to develop the growth. I never like to turn my back on any of these guys. And I think that the fact that Oracle has found a new vein to jump into, again, it promotes my story that, no, you should clearly watch. Look at how IBM came back. Look at how Microsoft came back. We've joked a lot about Apple and its doldrums. Again, the mighty take a long time to die, if they die at all. And these companies seem to have a new breath of life, a second leg, so to speak, as they move down the economic ladder.
All right, and last but not least, I'll surprise you with this question here, Ken. Any specific places where you're putting money now and or taking off the table?
You know what? I'm just going to throw out a blanket thing, and I don't care what brokerage house you use. If you are an income investor, just take a good hard look at a lot of these new corporate bond issues. There was a record amount of corporate bonds that were issued over this summer, and a lot of them are what I'm going to call the Trump stocks. They're those industrial plays that need to build new plants, new rail hubs, and all this stuff. I would just go look at the list on any of the custodians and start buying those bonds because those yields are not going to be here in 2 weeks, Frank. They're going to be at least a 1 percentage point lower in 2 weeks. So step in now or don't complain.
Terrific, Ken. Looking forward to speaking with you some more. I wish we had more time here, but luckily we will later in the 6 o'clock hour on Winning with WINANS, and we'll hear more about your trip to Washington and what's happening in Vegas as well. Top-ranked money manager Ken Winans, President and Chief Investment Officer at Winans Investments, which you can find at winansinvestments.com. Thank you very much, Ken, for joining us live here. Look forward to speaking with you again at 6 o'clock this evening.
Thank you, Frank. Good night now.
Thank you very much. And out to the freeways we go on 790 KABC. Mottek On Money continues, 790 KABC. Good afternoon. Winning start to the new week on Wall Street with the NASDAQ extending its record winning streak up another 208 points, settling at 22,349. The S&P 500 popping above 6,600 of 31 points at 6,615. And the Dow managed a closing gain of nearly 50 points, settling at 45,883. All the major averages at or near record highs. The yield in the 10-year note is back down to 4.04% in anticipation of the Federal Reserve's rate cut this week after a two-day policy-setting meeting that'll start tomorrow and end on Wednesday. It's now widely expected the Fed will cut short-term interest rates by at least a quarter percentage point, which will impact business loans as well as consumer loans, as well as variable rate mortgages and other important things in the borrowing world. And there's a chance maybe they'll go a 0.5% cut. So let's see what happens. But the expectation is a 0.25% rate cut on Wednesday. Gold, meanwhile, is at a record high today, moving above $3,700 an ounce. Right now, down $2.10 to $3,716.90 an ounce. Silver has also got another pop today and is above $43 an ounce at $43.15. Platinum at $1,416.90 an ounce. Circle shares of nearly $9 at $134 and change. Orbs, 8Co, down nearly $4 at $12.02. Taking a look at NVIDIA, slightly lower at the close, down 7 cents at $177.75. Tesla getting a pop today at $14.10 higher at $410.04. That rise in Tesla propelling Elon Musk of further up on the billionaires list, which he was briefly overtaken last week by Larry Ellison, as we just talked about. On the rise in Oracle stock, Oracle shares moved up today, up nearly $10 at 302.14 on possibility that they might take over TikTok. That was the news about Oracle today. Oracle got as high as 345 and change last week, and that's when Larry Ellison, the head of Oracle, became the richest person in the world. And now the latest news on 790 KABC.
Headed to SoFi Stadium? Ride the Culver City Bus Line 99, the SoFi Express. Just $2 base fare for a round trip from Westfield, Culver City on weekend game days. We're hiring too. Learn more at culvercitybus.com or call 310-253-6500.
Bruin fans, fall is finally here. That means UCLA football is back in your life. Head out to the Rose Bowl to enjoy America's best tailgating and to make more unforgettable memories with the Bruins. Nico Iamaleava and the Bruins are ready to make an impact this year, and we need you cheering them at the Rose Bowl. Visit UCLABruins.com or call 310-UCLA-WIN to lock in your tickets today. 310-UCLA-WIN.
Actor Michael Rosenbaum, he knows some of the most talented people in the business, and now he's getting the inside story.
Talking with Josh Duhamel. Did you ever suffer with anxiety? I would put tremendous pressure on myself to deliver, because if I didn't know what else I was going to do. David Tennant. If you could do Hamlet, nothing should make you nervous.
I was on the floor of my dressing room in the fetal position.
I've been there.
The Inside of You podcast.
I hope you enjoy the podcast. We talk about mental health and life and all that stuff. Thanks for being here.
Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
Mottek On Money continues here in 790 KABC. Crime very much in focus as it relates to business as well as everyone these days. L.A. crime statistics now coming under scrutiny. Of course, security at events, too, following the assassination of Charlie Kirk last week and then the shocking murder of Irania Zarutska, the Ukrainian woman killed on a train back east. The Honorable Dennis ZINE joins us live now, former Los Angeles City Council member and former LAPD sergeant with something like 50-plus years of service to the City of Angels. Dennis ZINE, thank you very much for coming to the line here. And first of all, your reaction to the Charlie Kirk assassination and increased security at events that we're seeing these days.
Very, very tragic. A murder with thousands of people watching, absolutely horrendous. When that takes place in the United States of America. I don't care what your political affiliation is. That man married with children, trying to deliver a message that he believed in, honestly believed in, and he was a wonderful man who tried to do good for the society. And if you don't believe what he believes, that's fine, but you don't have to kill the man in broad daylight with hundreds of witnesses. Absolutely tragic. And this just shows what happens in the political arena, where people, for whatever reason, want to take out their frustration, their anger, and harm innocent people. And sadly, this is not the first situation that's taken place where an elected official has been murdered just because of what they believe in. And while he was not an elected official, he was definitely working with elected officials, trying to make America better with his actions and his activities. So very tragic, and may he rest in peace. And his wife and children, may they somehow overcome this tragedy that they're impacted with, that they were thrown into because of some individual, whatever the mental problem is. That's not an excuse for committing blatant murder.
Now, security issues being revisited pretty much across the board. What are your thoughts on this, and are we seeing a visible change here in this area?
Well, we know that people can get CCWs, carry concealed weapons. Many people I know that are contacting me regarding CCWs, they don't feel safe. They don't feel secure. They don't feel that there's adequate police officers, adequate public safety personnel to protect them and their families. We know that the Southwest Valley, Tarzana, and Encino area has been hit with a lot of burglaries, and the husband and wife were murdered during one of the break-ins. So people are afraid. They're concerned. And buying a gun is not necessarily the answer, but it affords you some protection. But many people who buy the weapon and get licensed for it don't know how to use it. And that's one of the concerns I have, is you do something and you don't know what you're going to do with it. So people lock it in a safe, lock it, secure it someplace. And if they need it, they're not going to have it. And if they have it, they don't know when to use it. It creates a lot of dilemma for a lot of people. But I think that as time goes on, they'll become more familiar with what you do to be safe, keep you and your family safe. But clearly, There's a fear that is within this region of Southern California and other parts of the country. And there's some places where you don't have the fear because people live in safety and they believe in safety and they believe that law enforcement can do their job. And I don't really believe that LAPD has the capacity with the number of personnel that they keep shrinking to, 8,702 at this number, can do an adequate job to protect all the people of Los Angeles. That is insufficient number, and I don't care what the mayor says, what she tries to do. The numbers are not increasing. They're staying stagnant, and people are not joining law enforcement for a host of reasons.
Given what else happened last week, that shocking murder of a young woman on a train back east in Charlotte, North Carolina, obviously security on the transit system is also being looked at, of course, nationwide, but especially here where there have been a number of incidents here on the transit system. What are your thoughts about security at the subway system here in the Los Angeles area?
Frank, I think it's improved somewhat. I don't think it's great. I think it's improved, and I'll use the public transit system, the rail, the red line, the orange line. I'll use that occasionally when I have to go downtown. I do not ride it without a weapon just to feel safe and secure. I will see officers occasionally. I do see security people. I don't know how effective they are other than walking through the train depot, walking in and out of a train or a bus. They don't really engage. And when they see something, most of the times I see they just walk away. So it's not very effective. See, aggressive law enforcement seems to have diminished in this region for whatever reason. Aggressive law enforcement. I'm not talking about harassment. I'm talking about aggressive law enforcement where they stop people and question people. But LAPD has a policy, no pretext stop. Pretext stop means you need articulable cause before you can stop someone. If the license plate is expired, it has to be expired a certain amount of time. If the windows are tinted, have to be tinted during certain hours. I mean, it's ridiculous what they've done to really tie the hands of the officers to try to do the job. They've restricted them so much. And then we have a report that comes out from a retired sergeant from the Los Angeles Police Department. Apparently he was working the section that compiles the numbers, and he had 23 years of service. And an article came out how the ComStat, which is how they manage crime and document crime, failed Los Angeles and why the numbers can't be trusted. There used to be a term called cooking the books. So what they would do is they cook the books, which means instead of a burglary, it's a theft. Instead of it's a murder, it's a manslaughter. They reduce the significance of the crime. Instead of a stolen vehicle, they classified it as something else. It was called cooking the books. Very popular back in the day when you wanted to make the statistics look good. But they have the systems now, which is mandated by the FBI, SRS and NIBRS, Summary Reporting System and National Incident-Based Reporting System. Those incidents are now reported on computers, and I really question the numbers, how accurate they are. For example, if I want to look at homicides in the city of Los Angeles year-to-date compared to last year, year-to-date as of the 6th of this month, 194. Compared to the same time last year, 203. That's a slight reduction of 9. While I look at these other crimes, there's major reductions. So I would question how accurate the statistics are that they're putting into the computer to say exactly how safe people are in the city of Los Angeles. And if you've been a victim, you know you're not safe. If your catalytic converter's been stolen, your homes are broken into, you've been robbed, your watch has been stolen, you know how unsafe you are. So I don't want to frighten people. I just want to say I would question the statistics, and I would look at the sergeant who's since retired, the article, and it's published in the City Watch, and it's titled "The ComStat Failed Los Angeles and Why Numbers Can't Be Trusted." So we look at those numbers, we look at safety, and I venture to say most people who are listening don't feel very safe in the city of Los Angeles. And how often have you seen a police officer pull a car over and write a ticket, or a motorcycle officer do any type of traffic enforcement? It's seldom done, if ever. All the aggressive enforcement has really been washed away, and it's the safety net that's been vanished because of policies and publicity where officers many times just don't engage for survival of their career.
On the air live with the Honorable Dennis ZINE, former LA City Council member and former LAPD sergeant. It's interesting, this debate going on whether crime is up or down based on what you just told us and your own experience. What's your gut feeling? Is crime up or down here in the Los Angeles area?
I honestly think it's up. And I think while you'll see a bit lower crime in certain areas, but the numbers that you could really look at is when they homicides. And if they homicides, when they're reporting, they're actually 9 down from last year. I wouldn't say that's a significant reduction. Yes, it's 9 people who aren't dead. But the fact is that a major reduction in the city this size, or are those numbers skewed? And I think when you look at the burglaries and the robberies and the other activities that take place, they published the citywide profile, and the last publication was September 6th. And I get those frequently, and that's what I quote my statistics from. But I think that some of the reporting isn't accurate, and I think the computerized systems they have now have flaws. We know computers have flaws. So I don't have a lot of trust in it, and I think that what they need to do is look at the system and see how accurate it is. The old way, you'd make a report, you'd have a DR number, Department of Reference number, you file the report. Now it's not done handwritten. It's not done. It's done through computers. How accurate is that? That's how they're reporting crime. But if you want to take homicides, like I say, homicides day to date, they're only down 9. And I wouldn't say we brag about 9 reduction.
Dennis ZINE, the Honorable Dennis ZINE, former Los Angeles City Council member and former LAPD sergeant with 50-plus years of service to the City of Angels. Thank you very, very much, Dennis ZINE, for taking the call here this afternoon.
Thank you, Frank.
Out to the freeways we go now on 790 KBC.
Headed to SoFi Stadium? Skip the traffic and ride the Culver City Bus Line 99, the SoFi Express, your direct $2 base fare round-trip ride from the Culver City Transit Center at Westfield, Culver City. Buses run on weekend game days every 20 minutes starting 3 hours before kickoff, with return service beginning at the start of the third quarter. And guess what else? We're hiring. Join our team and help keep the community moving. Visit culvercitybus.com or call 310-253-6500 for info on your next ride to the game or maybe your next job.
Bruin fans, fall is finally here. That means UCLA football is back in your life. Head out to the Rose Bowl to enjoy America's best tailgating and to make more unforgettable memories with the Bruins. Nico Iamaleava and the Bruins are ready to make an impact this year, and we need you cheering them at the Rose Bowl. Visit UCLABruins.com or call 310-UCLA-WIN to lock in your tickets today. 310-UCLA-WIN.
Everyone knows the legend of D.B. Cooper, but what if I told you there's an even better story out there? One with multiple aircraft hijackings, prison escapes, and so many twists and turns. I'm talking about the hit podcast, American Skyjacker, which is now an action-packed documentary coming to theaters and streaming this fall. Find out more at www.americanskyjacker.com and listen to our bonus episode of the podcast coming soon. American Skyjacker. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
Mottek On Money continues here, 790 KABC. In the L.A. business world, this is a big deal. Corporate deal-making activities picking up. More companies getting the urge to merge these days. Merger and acquisition activity seeing a resurgent. Perfect time now for a gathering of professionals focused on M&A activity. And that gathering is the prestigious Association for Corporate Growth, L.A. Chapter Annual Conference in Beverly Hills, getting underway today. And joining us live now is Johannes Masserer, Executive Director of the Association for Corporate Growth, ACGLA, here in Los Angeles. Johannes, thank you very much for taking the call here this afternoon.
Frank, good afternoon. Thank you so much for having me.
Wonderful to have you with us here. Johannes, take it from the top and tell us what's happening there.
Well, it's a party. We're at the Beverly Hilton. There's a bit of construction, but that hasn't stopped anyone in Los Angeles, as you know, and we have over 1,200 deal makers here. We have investment bankers, private equity professionals from both coasts. I think over half of our attendees came on an airplane. We have a lot of showing from across California, Northern California. It's M&A SoCal is our conference, used to be known as the LA Business Conference. And it's fantastic. A lot of people are coming, even day off. So there's some opportunity if anyone wants to pop by tomorrow. Katie Koch, our good friend who heads up a Trust Company of the West, will be our keynote tomorrow, speaking at 12:30. And yes, it's a great gathering for anyone involved in deal making in Southern California and beyond.
That's fantastic. What's the mood there this year? This conference has been going on for decades, and it's certainly seen the ups and downs in the economy. Remember even the days during the financial crisis, and coming out of that, had Ben Bernanke on stage for an hour there with Jim Friedman from Intrepid Investment Banking, and you certainly attract the biggest names in the business. What's the mood this time around?
It's funny you mentioned Jim. I was just with him about 17 minutes ago. He's here, as are a lot of other senior leaders of the community, and it's fantastic. I mean, it's a lot of optimism. The year started off slowly, I think, for many, and somehow since Memorial Day, all summer long, everyone's busy, a lot of deal activity, and our deal source, which is sort of the one-on-one, meeting space, speed dating, if you will, between the investment bankers and private equity. I mean, we have upwards of 5,000 meetings scheduled between yesterday and today, and another, I think, 16,000 people want to have meetings with people. And yeah, it's tremendous. There's a lot of optimism, and I think people really focus on what they can control and try to ignore everything else. And yeah, it's a treat to be here.
That's wonderful, and we've been talking to some of the M&A folks here on this program this year, and it looks like there's a chance that more merger activity related to Hollywood might be seen. We, of course, had that big deal with Skydance picking up Paramount CBS, and it looks like there's more buzz here that other companies may soon be merging here in Hollywood.
Yeah, so we're slightly less we're really middle market M&A, and so not as strong, I guess, in terms of there's definitely deal makers here from the, entertainment world, and we actually have a panel right now going on, which is a corporate development panel with YPO out of Beverly Hills, and there's quite a few entertainers in the room who are in that space. It sounds like there's some activity. I mean, it's interesting, right? The Wall Street Journal talked, I think, a couple of days ago about PNC Bank, looking to become too big to fail, right? They're trying to get into the $1 trillion space, and there seems to be a lot of activity all over, and I think that's a good thing.
Maybe you can tell us, highlight some of the panels and what is top of mind in the M&A world among investment bankers, attorneys, and other professionals in the world of M&A activity.
So today we had a lot of fun with our little conference within a conference. We had something called AICon, which had a lot of, kind of a hyper focus on what's happening, in deal making, given AI, from intelligence to integration. We had sort of future of M&A using AI agents. This afternoon we had a panel where one of the panelists was a AI robot sitting there, and very well mannered. Good dancer as well, some good moves. And yeah, I mean, it's fascinating talking about the robotic colleague, how AI will redefine workplaces in all sorts of ways. And, one of the person who was speaking talked about how, I guess, there are not enough prison guards in California. And so now they're using these humanoid robots for wellness checks, in the prison system, which is, fascinating. Data to dollars, unlocking transaction value through AI. That all happened today. Tomorrow, we have a really great lineup as well with panels talking about the next frontier, capital solutions for GPs, in a liquidity-strained market. Ahead of the curve, private equity exit trends shaping 2026, what's happening next week. I did mention Katie from TCW talking a little bit about their play in the private debt space. A lot of your listeners are aware that there's this partnership with PNC Bank that they started a year and a half ago. Human side of due diligence tomorrow afternoon, and then also we will have one of your friendly colleagues from the Deal Sorcery podcast recording live from here.
Fantastic, Johannes. Well, you know how to throw a party, that's for sure. It sounds terrific, and thank you very much for that comprehensive update on what's happening at the Association for Corporate Growth LA Chapter Conference in Beverly Hills. Johannes Masserer, the Executive Director of the ACGLA Group here at acgla.org. Thank you very, very much for joining us live here this afternoon.
Frank, thank you so much. Look forward to seeing you
sir.
soon.
Thank you very, very much. Stay
Bye-bye.
tuned now for the 790 KABC News Blitz, and I'll be back at 6 with Winning with WINANS, here 790 KABC Los Angeles. With the stock market at a record high today, a lot to talk about. We're going to continue the update here on the Dow Jones Industrial Average, coming in for a closing gain today of 49 points to 45,883. The S&P 500 moved up 31. That's 6,615. Yep, you heard me. The S&P 500 above 6,600 at the close. And the NASDAQ continued a winning streak of more than just about a week now. NASDAQ up 208 points at 22,349. The yield in the 10-year note is back down to 4.04%. This in anticipation of the two-day policy-setting meeting. The Federal Reserve, not Ben Bernanke, but Jerome Powell will be in the spotlight this week following a two-day meeting. On Wednesday, we'll be hearing from Fed Chair Powell at a news conference. He's scheduled right after the announcement comes out at 11 o'clock here in Los Angeles on Wednesday. A statement on the economy, a decision on interest rates, and then the full-blown news conference. It's widely expected the Fed will be lowering rates by a 0.25 percentage point. We have seen the yield in the 10-year note, which impacts fixed-rate mortgage rates, moving lower. What they're going to do on Wednesday with the lowering of short-term rates, we expect to see a lowering of the adjustable rate mortgages as well as business and consumer loans that are impacted by the Fed funds rate, which ultimately impacts the prime lending rate, which major banks charge their best customers. Taking a look at the price of gold in advance of all this, record highs for gold today, above $3,700. Right now, $3,716.90 an ounce, pulling back $2.10. We're seeing silver get another pop today, moving above $43 an ounce today. And that's the highest we've seen in quite some time. Platinum also on the rise above 1,400 at 1,416 and change. Silver right now at 43.15. Taking a look at Orbs, and that's the AITCO company that we're just talking about with our expert here on M&A. This is a company that is also focused on AI and determining whether you're dealing with a human or AI. Orbs in the spotlight, pulling back today nearly $4 at 12.02. That's the one that Dan Ives, who's a frequent guest on this program, is involved with. NVIDIA, of course, the AI giant, pulling back 7 cents today at 177.75. Tesla getting a pop today of 14.10 at 410.04. Oracle in the plus column. This is the one that propelled Larry Ellison to the top of the list briefly as the wealthiest person in the world. Oracle shares moving up nearly $10 today at 302.14, got as high as 345 and change last week, and that's the day that Larry Ellison briefly became the wealthiest person in the world. Tesla has been getting a pop lately, and that's kept Elon Musk at the top. Now stay tuned for the 790 KBC News Blitz, followed by Winning with Winans at 6. I'll be back on the air with top-ranked money manager Ken Winans right here, 790.
Headed to SoFi Stadium? Ride the Culver City Bus Line 99, the SoFi Express. Just $2 base fare for a round trip from Westfield Culver City on weekend game days. We're hiring too. Learn more at culvercitybus.com or call 310-253-6500.